Jimmy, I was curious to hear your opinion on perhaps one of the most unsung and underappreciated names in the history of the business, be it in Memphis or anywhere. Could you give your thoughts on the in-ring and post-wrestling career of Eddie Marlin?
Oh, my God. This is so bizarre because when I was in Jackson, Tennessee a few weeks ago, as we record this, Robert Gibson held up his cell phone to me and said, "Here, talk to this guy." I said, "Who?" And I said, "Hello." And it was Eddie Marlin.
Oh, wow.
Which is the first time that I have spoken to Eddie Marlin, and not because we've had heat, but just first occasion I've had to speak to Eddie Marlin on the telephone or in person, I think since 20 years, let's say, sometime in the late 90s, at an event that they had run in Louisville with USWA or whatever the case may be. And now I get a question about Eddie Marlin. He was actually more over as a babyface for a longer period of time in his territory than all but, maybe 3 or 4 other people. Even though he was very unlikely, he was not an amateur wrestler or a technical shooting whiz, but he had learned, especially with independence in Tennessee, he was a raw bone fucker. He's 86 years old today, and he and his brother Thomas, who's 83, if they wanted to be, were 2 of the stiffer old cocksuckers that you could possibly try to deal with. Thomas Marlin could hit you in the back with a broad arm and make you see stars. But he wasn't, so he was somewhat of an old fashioned shooter, but he wasn't a technical amateur great or whatever. He was a good old fashioned Southern worker, a baby face that knew how to sell and go down and bleed, and you could get heat on him, and then he had a fired up comeback. And he was a great tag team partner for Tommy Gilbert, or when Johnny Eagles came over, his cousin from England, because they looked so much alike. He was a great tag team partner with guys, and he was just a solid, he was an honest, dependable guy. He spent some time, I understand, working for Sheriff's Department in Nashville, but he was always involved in the office toward it. He actually started late. He started really in independence and never even got in with Nick Goulas and Roy Welch until I think Jerry Jarrett took a liking to him and started booking him more often and started having him take care of towns. And then Eddie became his father-in-law. But he was always the guy to take the money from the towns because he was dependable, etc. And he worked in a variety of positions after he quit wrestling. But for about 10 years there, from the late 60s, early 70s, through to the early 80s, Eddie Marlin was one of the most popular guys in the Tennessee territory.